The city's night was alive with neon lights, flickering signs, and the distant roar of explosions. Kyle ran through the narrow streets, his boots clanging against the metal pavement. Behind him, Lyra, a small alien girl with silver-blue skin and glowing tribal marks, struggled to keep up, her tiny hands clutching a mysterious pendant that pulsed with faint light. Her eyes were wide with fear, and every shadow seemed to whisper danger. The explosion had come without warning, a sudden firestorm in the middle of the city. Kyle had no idea who had caused it, but he knew one thing: Lyra had to survive. He glanced over his shoulder, and the street they had just crossed was gone, replaced by a wall of fire and twisted metal. Sparks flew through the air, slicing the darkness. Like falling stars, Kale shouted, "Keep moving!" his voice barely audible over the roar. Lyra stumbled, but he grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. A chunk of burning debris fell between them, and without thinking, Kale threw himself over her, feeling the heat sear his back. Pain exploded through his body, and the world blurred around him. When the smoke cleared, Kale forced himself to stand, but his legs shook as if they belonged to someone else. The city looked different, unfamiliar. Buildings twisted in impossible angles. Neon signs flickered in languages he could not read, and the sky was streaked with strange colors that made his head spin. Even the air smelled different, heavy with electricity and a faint metallic tang. Lyra's small voice called out, trembling, "Kyle, are you hurt?" Kyle coughed, tasting blood, but managed a weak nod. He could feel her, trembling not just from fear, but from the strange energy that pulsed in the air. He realized the blast had changed more than the city. It had changed something inside him too. A low hum began to vibrate through the ground, deep and steady. Lyra's pendant glowed brighter, and Kale felt warmth spread through his chest. It was as if the pendant was alive, reacting to the chaos around them. He didn't understand how it worked, only that it might be their only hope. Shadows moved along the streets, shapes too fast to identify. They were not human, not alien in the way Lyra was. Something else entirely. Watching, waiting. Kale knew that if he hesitated, they could lose everything. He grabbed Lyra's hand and started running again, dodging falling rubble, leaping over cracks in the pavement, his body screaming in pain. The hum grew louder, vibrating in his bones. The ground shook beneath their feet, sending shards of metal and glass scattering like deadly rain. Kyle pushed, Lyra behind him as a massive beam of energy struck a nearby building, sending it collapsing in a cloud of dust and fire. He barely had time to shield her, and a piece of debris cut across his arm, burning through his jacket and flesh. Lyra cried, "Outer cell." He didn't respond, only moved, guiding her through the chaos. Every step brought new dangers. Broken streets, glowing cracks in the ground, strange creatures slipping through the shadows. Kale realized the city was no longer the place he had known. It had become a labyrinth of hazards and unknown powers. Finally, they reached a small alley, momentarily safe from the chaos. Kale pressed Lyra against the wall, checking her for injuries. Her glowing marks flickered like frightened fireflies, and her breathing was fast and shallow. Kale touched her pendant gently, trying to calm both her and himself. The warmth from the pendant spread through him again, a small comfort in a world that had gone mad. "We have to keep moving," he said, voice strained but firm. Lyra nodded, trusting him completely. He could see in her eyes that she believed in him, that no matter what happened, they would face it together. Kale realized he had never felt such responsibility, such need to protect someone with every ounce of his being. From the corner of his eye, Kale saw movement, figures slipping in the smoke and shadows, watching them. He couldn't tell if they were enemies or something else. The hum from the pendant grew louder again, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He knew it was guiding them, but guiding them to what, he could not guess. Kale tightened his grip on Lyra's hand, forcing himself to focus. "Whatever happens, we survive," he whispered. "Then we find the answers." Lyra's eyes shone with determination, mirroring his own. Together, they stepped out of the alley and back into the twisted streets, the city alive with danger and secrets. The first night after the explosion had only begun, and Kale knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Kale and Lyra moved cautiously through the ruined streets. The city around them no longer looked familiar. Buildings leaned at impossible angles. Smoke rose in greenish clouds, and the air shimmered with strange energy. Every step echoed in the empty streets, a warning that they were not alone. Lyra's pendant glowed softly, lighting the path ahead. Kale glanced down at her small hands, clutching it tightly. He realized the glow was not just light. It pulsed like a heartbeat, reacting to the city, reacting to danger. He felt its warmth in his chest, a strange comfort in a world gone mad. Shadows moved in the corners of his vision, quick and silent. Kyle's instinct screamed at him that these were not human. Creatures slipped through the rubble, dark shapes with eyes that reflected the strange neon lights. He tightened his grip on Lyra's hand and whispered, "Stay close. Don't let go." She nodded, her eyes wide but determined, trusting him completely. They turned a corner, and the street ahead was blocked by a collapsed tower, glowing cracks running along its surface. Kyle studied it carefully, noting the energy pulses, the way the air around it shimmered and distorted. "This used to be a main street," he muttered. "Now it's a trap." Lyra looked up at him. "We have to go, or we will be trapped forever," she said softly. Her voice had a strength that surprised him, and he felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. Kale spotted a narrow passage between two buildings, partially blocked by fallen debris. "It's risky," he said, "but it's our only way forward." He lifted Lyra over the rubble first, then climbed himself, wincing as a sharp piece of metal cut his arm. The warmth from the pendant spread through him again, easing the pain slightly. It was as if it knew exactly what he needed, when he needed it. The passage led them into a strange courtyard, overgrown, with alien plants that glowed faintly in the darkness. The air smelled sweet and sharp at the same time, unfamiliar and strange. Kyle paused, listening. A soft whispering filled the air, almost like voices carried by the wind. He could not understand the words, but the tone made him tense, every nerve alert. Suddenly, one of the glowing plants moved, sliding across the ground like a snake. Kyle grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind him. More shapes emerged from the shadows, their forms blurred but threatening. Kale's heart pounded in his chest, but he did not panic. He could feel the pendant's glow intensifying, and it guided his gaze toward a safe path through the courtyard. Lyra whispered, "They are watching us." Kale nodded, knowing she was right. Every creature in the shadow seemed to be studying them, learning their movements, waiting for the wrong moment to strike. He tightened his grip on the pendant, feeling the warmth spread through both of them, giving them courage. A sudden flash of light illuminated the courtyard, and Kale saw one of the creatures clearly for the first time. It was tall and thin, with limbs that bent in impossible ways, and eyes that shone like liquid metal. It hissed, a sound that made the hair on Kale's neck stand on end. He raised his arm to protect Lyra, but before he could act, the creature vanished into the shadows again, leaving only a trail of flickering light. Kale realized that the city itself was alive in some way. The cracks in the ground, the glowing, plants, the creatures, they were all connected. The pendant in Lyra's hand seemed to respond to this connection, pulsing faster as if communicating with them. Kale felt a strange sense of hope even amid the danger. Maybe this pendant could guide them, protect them, or even fight back. They moved forward step by step, the shadows following silently. Every sound seemed amplified. Every movement felt dangerous. Kale's mind raced, thinking about how to survive, how to protect Lyra. He had never faced anything like this. Not on Earth, not in his life, and yet the responsibility he felt made him stronger, more alert, more human in a way he had never understood before. As they reached the edge of the courtyard, Kale spotted a faint glow ahead, a building that seemed intact, untouched by the explosion. "Stay behind me," he whispered, guiding Lyra toward it. The shadows seemed to hesitate as they approached, as if sensing something in the building. Kale's pulse quickened, not from fear this time, but from the thought that they might have found shelter even if temporary. They stepped into the building cautiously. the glow from Lyra's pendant lighting the interior. Inside, the walls were covered with strange symbols, glowing faintly in the dark. Kale ran his hand over them, feeling vibrations almost like the building was alive. Lyra's eyes widened. "It feels safe here," she whispered. Kale nodded. But he knew better. Nothing was truly safe anymore. Not in a world that had changed in a single night. He looked down at Lyra, her small face glowing in the light of her pendant. No matter what happened, he would protect her, even if it meant facing the shadows, the creatures, or the unknown energy that had transformed the city. He clenched his fists, feeling a surge of determination. They were alive. They were together. And as long as that remained, there was hope. Outside, the shadows moved closer, waiting, watching. But Kale and Lyra had taken their first steps into a new world, a world that was dangerous, mysterious, and alive. And the adventure had only just begun. Kale and Lyra stayed in the strange building, the walls glowing with faint, alien symbols. The air was thick with the scent of electricity and something else he could not name. Every step echoed as if the building itself was alive and listening. Lyra's pendant pulsed faster, and Kale could feel the warmth spreading through them. It was as if the pendant knew something he did not, guiding them forward. They moved cautiously toward a spiral staircase that led upward. The shadows outside seemed to follow their every movement. Kale's senses were alert, every nerve on edge. He realized that the city itself had become a predator. Every street, every alley, every ruined building was watching, waiting for a mistake. As they reached the top of the staircase, the symbols on the walls flickered. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through Kale's bones. Lyra gripped his hand tightly. "Kale, I feel them," she whispered, her voice trembling. Before he could respond, the door at the end of the hall burst open. A figure stepped through the doorway, tall and shadowed, eyes glowing like molten silver. Kyle immediately placed himself between Lyra and the figure. What are you?" he demanded, voice steady despite the fear. The figure tilted its head, moving with unnatural speed. "You should not be here," it hissed, its voice low and echoing. Kale could feel a cold pressure in the air, as if the creature's presence was bending reality itself. Lyra's pendant glowed brighter, and Kale noticed that the figure recoiled slightly. It was like the pendant had power they did not yet understand. Kale's mind raced, thinking of how to protect Lyra, how to survive. The creature stepped closer, and the floor beneath them vibrated. Shards of debris lifted, floating in the air, responding to the creature's presence. Kale grabbed a metal pipe from the wall, holding it in front of him like a weapon. He had no idea if it would work, but he had to try. The creature lunged, fast and silent, but Kale swung the pipe. The pendant blazed suddenly, a pulse of energy that threw the creature. Backward, it hit the wall with a crash, leaving a trail of black smoke in its wake. Lyra gasped. "It's the pendant." Kyle nodded, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. It was as if the pendant had its own will, protecting them, fighting for them. The creature struggled to rise, eyes fixed on the glowing pendant. Kyle realized it would not stop until it had destroyed them. He grabbed Lyra's hand and ran down the hall. The building itself seemed to respond to the pendant, doors opening and closing to guide them. They reached a large atrium, broken glass falling from the ceiling in slow motion. Kale dodged each shard, pushing Lyra forward. The shadows were everywhere, moving in unnatural ways, shapes twisting and bending. Suddenly, the pendant pulsed violently, sending a shockwave through the room. The creatures outside howled, recoiling from the light. Kyle realized they had discovered something, a weapon they did not fully understand. Lyra clutched the pendant, and it glowed brighter, illuminating the atrium with a soft blue light. Kyle felt the energy flowing into him, strengthening him. Giving him courage, one of the creatures leapt at them again, faster than he could react. But the pendant emitted a pulse that stopped it in midair, freezing it as if time itself had paused. Kyle could feel the heat of the creature, the pressure of its power. He realized the pendant could not only protect but also control. A new idea formed in his mind, one that could save them both, Lyra, he whispered urgently. Hold it tight and focus on protecting us. She nodded, fear and determination in her eyes. The glow from the pendant expanded, washing over the atrium in waves. The creatures shrieked, twisting and retreating into the shadows. Kyle felt the energy pulsing. Through his body, a strange connection to Lyra and the pendant. For the first time, Kyle allowed himself a breath, though cautious. They were safe for now, but he knew the city was full of dangers they had yet to face. He glanced at Lyra, whose eyes were shining with awe and fear. Kale, what just happened? She asked, voice trembling. Kale shook his head. I don't know, but we survived. That's what matters. He looked around the atrium, noting the strange symbols glowing faintly on the walls. The city was changing them, teaching them, warning them. Kale understood one thing clearly. They were no longer in the world they had known. This was a new world, dangerous and alive, and Lyra's pendant was their only key to survival. As they moved forward, deeper into the building, Kale felt a sense of purpose. He had survived battles before, but this was different. This was a fight for something more than life. It was a fight for hope, for trust, for each other. And Kale swore silently. He would not let anything harm Lyra. No shadows, no creatures. No city could take her from him. Outside, the creatures stirred again, waiting, calculating. But inside the atrium, Kale and Lyra had discovered the first secret of the pendant. A secret that would change everything. And the real challenge had only just begun. Kale and Lyra moved cautiously through the corridors of the glowing building. The air felt alive, humming with energy that made the hairs on Kale's arms stand on end. Every wall, every symbol seemed to pulse with a rhythm, like the heartbeat of the city itself. Lyra's pendant glowed steadily now, lighting their path, casting shadows that danced across the cracked floor. Do you think the creatures will follow us? Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. Kyle glanced at her, his eyes scanning the darkness ahead. They will. They are patient. But we have something they don't, he said, nodding at the pendant in her hand. She looked down at it, her small fingers gripping it tightly. The pendant pulsed in response, warmth spreading through both of them like a protective shield. They emerged into a vast hall, broken arches and collapsed beams littering the floor. Strange plants grew through, the cracks in the walls glowing faintly. Kale noticed that some of them moved subtly. As if sensing the pendant's energy, he crouched to avoid a falling beam, then helped Lyra down. She clung to him, trusting him completely, and he felt a surge of determination to protect her no matter what. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook. Dust falling from the ceiling, a deep rumble echoed through the hall, vibrating through Kale's chest. He realized that the city itself was reacting to their presence. Something big is coming, he muttered. Lyra's eyes widened, her grip on the pendant tightening. Kale could feel the energy from the pendant pulsing faster, almost like it was warning them. A shadow moved across the hall, larger than any creature they had seen. It had limbs that twisted in impossible ways, and its eyes glowed like molten silver. Kale raised his arms instinctively, preparing to defend Lyra. The shadow hissed, a sound that made the floor tremble. It advanced slowly, circling them, testing them, learning their movements. Kale noticed that the pendant began to emit a soft, steady hum. He felt a strange connection to it, as if it understood his thoughts, his fears, his courage. He focused on the energy, letting it flow through his body. The shadow paused, its head tilting, eyes narrowing at the glow of the pendant. Kyle realized that the creature feared it, or at least respected it. He took a deep breath, holding Lyra close, and whispered, "We can do this together." They moved forward step by step, the pendant's light illuminating a path through the hall. The shadow followed silently, never attacking, but always watching. Kyle felt a strange mix of fear and hope. He realized that the city was testing them, shaping them, Every obstacle, every creature was part of a trial, and they had passed the first test, surviving the courtyard, surviving the shadows, surviving the unknown. They reached a large chamber at the heart of the building. It was circular with a high ceiling that vanished into darkness. In the center was a pedestal, and on it lay a crystal, glowing with the same blue light as Lyra's pendant. Kyle approached cautiously, feeling the hum of energy stronger with every step. The pendant pulsed in response, almost as if it recognized the crystal. Lyra stepped forward, eyes wide. It's calling me," she whispered. Kale nodded, watching her carefully. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about understanding the city, understanding the pendant, and understanding the power they had discovered. As Lyra reached out to touch the crystal, the chamber trembled. The shadow outside let out a screech, the sound echoing like thunder. Kale grabbed her hand, holding her steady. The crystal's glow intensified, connecting with the pendant in a stream of light. Kyle could feel the energy coursing through them both, strengthening them, protecting them. The shadow recoiled, hissing, and then vanished into the darkness, as if it had been repelled by a force it could not understand. Lyra looked at Kale, her eyes shining with awe. I feel something," she said, her voice trembling. Kale nodded, feeling the same surge of energy. "It's like we're connected to the city, and it wants us to go forward," he said. The crystal's light dimmed slightly, leaving a soft glow. Kale realized they had unlocked something, a secret of the city. But he also knew that this was only the beginning. They left the chamber cautiously, moving deeper into the building. Every step felt purposeful, guided by the energy of the pendant. Kyle held Lyra close, aware that the city was alive, aware that danger was always near, and yet for the first time since the explosion he felt hope. Hope that they could survive, hope that they could understand the city, and hope that together they could face whatever came next. Outside, the shadows stirred again, more numerous than before. But Kale and Lyra had discovered the first secret of the city's heart, a secret that would give them strength, courage, and a chance to fight back. And the real test was yet to come. Kale and Lyra moved deeper into the heart of the city. The corridors twisted and turned, walls alive with faint pulsing light. Every step they took seemed to echo, as if the building itself was aware of their presence. Lyra's pendant glowed steadily, a soft blue light that cut through the darkness. Kale kept a hand on her shoulder, alert to every sound, every movement, every shadow. They entered a large hall, its ceiling towering above them, broken in places. Strange vines hung from the gaps. Glowing faintly, Kale noticed movement in the shadows at the edges of the room. He felt a shiver run down his spine, the city warning him of danger. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay close, don't let go of the pendant." Suddenly, the shadows in the corners shifted violently. Creatures emerged, their forms dark and twisted, eyes glowing like molten silver. Kyle raised his arms, instinctively placing himself between Lyra and the creatures. The creatures hissed, moving closer, circling them. Kale could feel the pressure of their presence, heavy and suffocating. Lyra's pendant pulsed violently, sending waves of blue energy through the room. The creatures recoiled slightly, their eyes narrowing at the glow. Kale realized that the pendant could protect them, but only if they used it together. He reached out, touching Lyra's hand, focusing on the energy flowing from the pendant. A soft warmth spread through his body, strengthening his resolve. The creatures lunged, fast and silent, but the pendant's light expanded, forming a barrier around them. Kyle swung a metal beam he had picked up, striking one of the shadows. It shattered into mist, leaving behind a faint black smoke. The other creatures hesitated, sensing the power of the pendant. Kyle knew this was their chance to move forward. They ran across the hall, dodging debris and floating shards. The creatures pursued them, but each pulse from the pendant pushed them back. Kyle could feel the city reacting, walls shifting to guide them. He glanced at Lyra, whose eyes were wide with fear and determination. "We have to reach the tower," he said, pointing to a distant spire, glowing faintly in the darkness. The hall opened into a courtyard, Ruins of old buildings scattered around. Strange plants glowed along the edges, moving subtly as if alive. Kale and Lyra ran across the open space, the creatures closing in. Suddenly, one leapt from the shadows, faster than Kale could react, but the pendant emitted a pulse, freezing it in midair. Kyle felt the energy flow into him, giving him strength, courage, and focus. They reached the base of the tower, its surface smooth and shining with the same blue light as the pendant. Kale noticed symbols etched along the walls, glowing softly. He realized that the city was alive and the tower was its core. "This is it," he said to Lyra. "The city wants us here, for something important." Lyra nodded, clutching the pendant. "I can feel it, like it's calling me." As they began to climb the tower, the creatures returned, more numerous than before. Kyle and Lyra fought side by side, using the pendant to push them back. The shadows writhed, twisting and splitting, testing them. Kale realized that the creatures were not evil, just guardians, testing those who entered the city's heart. Each pulse from the pendant drove them back, but also drained Lyra slightly. Kyle could feel her weakening and his heart ached. "Hold on, Lyra," he whispered. "We're almost there." The tower climbed higher than they had imagined, spiraling. Into darkness, Kale noticed the walls beginning to shimmer, showing glimpses of the city outside. He saw streets, buildings, and ruins moving, changing, alive. It was a living organism, and they were inside its veins, its mind, its power. At the top of the tower, they reached a chamber unlike anything Kale had ever seen. Crystals floated in midair, forming a circle around a pedestal. On the pedestal was a sphere glowing with pure blue energy. Kale felt the pendant respond instantly, pulsing in rhythm with the sphere. Lyra stepped forward, hesitant but determined, the pendant glowing brighter than ever. Suddenly the creatures leapt, converging on them with terrifying speed. Kale swung his arms, using the pendant's power. Waves of energy pushing the creatures back. The air vibrated with the force of the pendant, the shadows shrieking and twisting. Kale realized that this was the city's final test. The sphere on the pedestal was the key, the source of the energy that the pendant was connected to. Lyra reached out, placing her hand on the sphere. The pendant blazed, a connection forming between her, Kale, and the sphere. Energy flowed through them, filling them with power, knowledge, and understanding. The creatures shrieked one last time, then vanished, leaving the chamber silent. Kyle looked at Lyra, her eyes glowing with the same blue light. They accepted us," he whispered, awe and relief in his voice. The city was no longer a threat, but a guide. Kyle realized they had unlocked something powerful, something beyond comprehension. The pendant and the sphere were connected, a bond between them and the city. He felt a surge of hope, knowing they could face whatever came next. But deep in his mind, he knew this was only the beginning. The real danger, the real adventure was still ahead, and Kale swore silently. He would protect Lyra no matter what. Kale and Lyra stood at the top of the tower, the sphere between them. Glowing with an intense blue light, the city around them seemed to breathe, walls shimmering, streets shifting like water. Kale felt the pendant pulse against Lyra's chest, stronger than ever. It was more than a light. It was a signal, a message, a bridge to something greater. "Kale, do you feel that?" Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. Kale nodded, sensing a vibration through his bones. "It's the city. It's alive," he said, awe and fear mixing. In his voice, the sphere pulsed in response, sending waves of energy through the tower. Kale could feel it trying to communicate, but not in words, in feelings, in memories. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook violently. Cracks split open and streams of light poured through. Kale grabbed Lyra, holding her steady. A voice echoed in their minds, soft but powerful. "Guardians, you have awakened the core. But are you ready to see?" Lyra's eyes widened, her fingers tightening around the pendant. What does it want us to see?" she asked. Kale shook his head, unable to speak. The sphere flared brightly and the chamber around them dissolved into light. They were no longer in the tower, no longer in the city, but somewhere else entirely. Before them stretched a vast landscape, alien and beautiful, Cities made of light floated in the sky. Rivers of energy ran like veins across the land. Kale felt the pendant. Pull him forward, guiding him. Lyra gasped. It's the city's memory. Its history. Images flashed before their eyes, showing humans and aliens interacting, learning, fighting, and building. Kale saw moments from his own life. Moments he did not remember living. The city's past and present were intertwined, and they were part of it. A figure appeared in the light, humanoid but radiant. Its eyes were like twin suns, its presence commanding and gentle. You have shielded the child, protected the heart. Now you must understand the truth, the figure said. Kale stepped forward, unsure how he could speak to this being. What truth? He asked, his voice trembling. The figure raised a hand, and suddenly, Kale and Lyra were shown a vision. They saw the explosion, the chaos in the streets, but then they saw something they never knew. Humans and aliens once lived in harmony. The city was created as a living network, a protector of all. But greed and fear tore it apart, scattering its guardians, hiding its power. Kale realized that the explosion was not random. It was a signal, a test to awaken those capable of restoring balance. Lyra looked at Kyle, tears in her eyes. We are part of this. We have to help, she whispered. Kyle nodded, his mind racing. He felt the pendant's energy flowing into him, filling him with strength and clarity. I understand now, he said, determination burning in his chest. We shielded the city's future when we shielded each other. The radiant figure extended its hands, and the sphere floated between them. The pendant is not just a shield, it said. It is a key, a bond between those who care and the city itself. Kale held the pendant tightly, feeling a surge of energy. The city's heartbeat echoed through him, through Lyra. He realized that together, they could unlock its full power. Suddenly, the vision shifted again, showing shadows rising stronger and faster. The creatures they had faced before were only a fraction of the city's challenge. Dark forces had learned of the pendant, the sphere, and now sought to claim them. Kale's jaw tightened, anger and fear mixing. They want to destroy this, to control it, he said. Lyra nodded, holding the pendant to her chest, her eyes glowing. We won't let them, she said, courage filling her voice. The figure nodded, fading into light. You have seen the truth, but you are not alone, it said. Trust in each other, trust in the bond, and the city will follow your lead. Kyle and Lyra found themselves back in the tower chamber. The sphere hovering between them, the shadows outside were already moving, more numerous, more aggressive. But Kale felt no fear, only determination. The pendant hummed, a promise of power, a connection to the city. He looked at Lyra, her eyes shining with the same blue light as the sphere. Ready? He asked. She nodded, holding the pendant high. Together they stepped forward, energy coursing around them. The shadows screeched and lunged, but the light from the pendant and sphere pushed them back. Kyle knew that this battle was not just for survival. It was for the city, for its secrets, for the future of humans and aliens alike. And as the first wave of shadows crashed against their combined power, Kyle understood something that burned in his chest. No matter the danger, no matter the darkness, they would fight, and they would win. Because they were not just guardians. They were the city's heart, and the city would rise with them. Kyle and Lyra stood at the top of the tower, the pendant and sphere glowing in perfect harmony. The shadows outside swirled. Darker and faster than ever, Kale tightened his grip on the pendant, feeling the city's heartbeat flowing through him. Lyra mirrored him, her eyes shining like twin stars. This is it, Kale whispered. The final test. The creatures lunged, screeching, twisting, moving as one dark mass, but Kale and Lyra were no longer afraid. Energy from the sphere surged into them, pulsing through every vein. The pendant glowed brighter than ever, a shield of light that cut through the shadows. Kale swung his arm and a wave of energy exploded outward, Scattering the creatures, the shadows reformed instantly, smarter, faster, more violent. Kale realized that brute force would not be enough. The city's voice echoed in his mind, calm and steady. Balance, not power. You must give, not take. Kyle closed his eyes, feeling the pendant respond. He let go of fear, anger, and doubt. Letting the energy flow naturally, Lyra followed, opening her mind to the city. She felt every street, every building, every heartbeat of the city around them. Her hands moved in sync with Kale's, guiding the pendant's energy. Together they became a single force, a channel for the city's power. The shadows shrieked, striking again, but each attack dissolved against the growing light. Kyle saw the sphere beginning to expand, radiating waves of pure blue energy. It touched the city itself, reaching into the streets, buildings, and ruins. The creatures screamed, twisting in pain, unable to resist the force. Kyle felt a strange connection, as if the city were speaking directly to him. It showed him the truth. These shadows were not evil, only lost, corrupted parts of the city. They had been twisted by fear, hunger, and neglect. And now, through Kale and Lyra, they could be healed. Lyra, we can fix them, Kale said, determination in his voice. Lyra nodded, tears running down her cheeks. We have to try. They focused, sending waves of energy into the shadows. The creatures writhed, then slowly, one by one, they began to change. Their forms softened, the dark energy fading, revealing glowing crystalline shapes underneath. The city was restoring itself through them, cleansing and rebuilding. Kale and Lyra felt the energy surge even higher, their bodies glowing with light. The sphere expanded further, enveloping the entire city in a cocoon of blue. Kale realized they had unlocked the city's full power. It was no longer just a network of buildings and streets. It was alive, aware, and awake. And it had chosen them as its champions, its guardians, its heart. The last of the shadows transformed, rising into elegant, luminous beings. They bowed to Kale and Lyra, acknowledging their leadership. Kale exhaled, relief washing over him. Lyra smiled through her tears. We did it, she whispered. The city pulsed, light spreading through every corner, every ruin, every forgotten street. The energy reached beyond the city, touching distant lands, awakening hope. Kale looked around, seeing streets restored, buildings mended, and the sky clearing. He saw people, humans and aliens, emerging from hiding, eyes wide with wonder. They stepped into the light, feeling safe, alive, connected. The city had become a sanctuary, a symbol of unity and strength. Kyle realized that everything they had endured, the blast, the shadows, the tests, had led to this moment. They had shielded the future, and now the future was shining before them. Lyra stepped closer to Kale, holding the pendant between them. I never imagined we could do this together, she said softly. Kyle smiled, his heart full. I never imagined that protecting you would protect everything. The sphere pulsed one final time, sending a wave of energy that wrapped around them like a hug. The city's voice whispered in their minds, gentle and grateful, guardians, you have awakened me. Together, we will thrive. Below, the streets filled with light and life. Kyle and Lyra watched as humans and aliens mingled, laughed, and rebuilt. The city was alive, not as a place of fear, but as a home of hope. Kale took Lyra's hand, feeling the warmth of the pendant, the power of the city. They had faced death, darkness, and uncertainty, but together, they had changed everything. As the sun rose over the city, the first real sunlight in decades, Kale realized something that filled him with awe. The world was no longer the same. Humans and aliens had a chance to live in harmony, and the city, once broken and silent, now thrived under their guardianship. Kale looked at Lyra, the light reflecting in her eyes. Whatever comes next, he said, we face it together. Lyra nodded, smiling, her voice steady and brave. Together, she said. And with that, the city awoke fully, its heart beating in rhythm with Kale and Lyra, a living world of wonder, hope, and endless possibilities. They had survived the blast, conquered the shadows, and unlocked a future no one could have imagined. And as the light of a new dawn spread across the skyline, Kale and Lyra knew that nothing would ever be the same again. But for the first time in a long time, everything felt right.